Hello guys, and welcome to a new WARNO video today by me, Vulcan. In this one I have for you a 4 versus 4 on Iron Waters, and I'm going to be playing with the 2nd UK Infantry Division. I wanted to share this video with you guys today because it was a great example of just how strong the 2nd UK can be, especially if you use your forward deployment correctly. And the UK suffers meme has been something that kind of came out of the early access where the UK were being nerfed over and over again, but it was only because the 2nd UK has always been extremely strong in 1v1 and also in team games. They ended up adding the Lynx with rocket pods, and that just made this division even more crazy. Thankfully they nerfed the Lynxes now, but they're still strong and you'll see plenty of them today. So let's have a quick look at what is going down at the start here. Of course, we are going to be leading the charge with the SAS, probably potentially the best forward deployment unit in the game. They have an AT launcher and they have AA, and they come in at 3 vet. So both the AT and the AA are extremely accurate. I'm going to be backing up with a sniper on the left side just to keep eyes out here. We got a Fox that will be heading down the road to catch out enemy vehicles early on. And I've got some scouts that are going to be sitting back in the towers on the right side here. By the back we have some AIRBORNE coming in with Saxons. We've got the Javelin there. I've got 2 more Javelins on the top side with the Rover CP. And that's going to be pretty much it. So I'm opting to go for wheeled transports early on. And then we're going to look to reinforce later on with our helicopters. Sasaki is going to be coming up here, assaulting our position with the Mi-8s. Thankfully we shot down the one with the rockets on the left hand side there. He does have one more with rockets on the right. But the main thing that I want to do here is make sure that these SAS shoot down these Mi-8s. Because the more Mi-8s we can shoot down, the less points he's going to get refunded. So these are 45 points apiece, and we've just managed to shoot down quite a lot of them there at the start. I'm even managing to pick up the BMP one on the left at the start. So big wins for me early on thanks to the SAS, and also the Javelins now arriving will help deal with future helicopters and also any aircraft. That Javelin just about getting out of the building in time. Nighthawk hanging out overhead, that's cool. Anyway, Saxons going to be bringing them over to the right hand side. This Luftsturmjäger, it has a Metis launcher, so it means that my Saxons have a potential to just run it down. One thing that's always important to note is whether or not enemy infantry has either a launcher, anti-infantry, or like an AIRBORNE. And dependent on which they are, APCs can be extremely effective. So if it's an AIRBORNE, if you get within 300 meters of the AIRBORNE, they can't fire you. And so the Saxons can just run them down. If they are an anti-infantry, then you can run them down with armored vehicles. There's nothing those infantry can do about it. It's only the Luftsturmjäger in this case that I'm going to have to worry about. So you can see that I'm trying to move my Saxons to the right hand side here in order to deal with the Luftsturmjäger without being in line of sight of the Luftsturmjäger that have the RPG. And because these Saxons, some of these Saxons came in with the SAS, they're actually elite veterancy. So this L-37 is really, really good. So we managed to take out the Luftsturmjäger on the right there. You can see that my SAS have been doing a fantastic job against the Luftsturmjäger, backed up by the AIRBORNE that arrived soon after. My main concern is something like this T-64 BBK on the left, that I'm not going to really have much to deal with out in the open. So I'm going to opt to go for the Jaguar GR1 cluster strike, but there was a MiG-31 hanging out in the air, so that ends up landing a shot on target. My Jaguar is forced to back off. Yeah, overall we've had a really, really good start. The SAS deploying forwards, shooting down so many Mi-8s, plus then being able to do a lot of damage with their C8s, because they have 71% accuracy on their gun there. The Su-27 also going to get shot down due to the sheer amount of man pads that I've got at the start of the game. We're just creating a no-fly zone where we have infantry dominance in a town. And that's like pretty much perfect, because the only other thing that would be scary in this situation is me potentially concentrating my forces too much and then getting hit by rockets. So we're going to be getting these fixed up anyway. And here comes the reinforcements. So early on, we went for the motorized start. That means that if they bring in lots of AA, I don't lose my helicopters. And then after the start, when we know what the situation is, I can bring up the Lynxes as far as I can. And these Lynxes in particular, they come in with those SNEB rockets. Now, ever since these Lynxes were added to the game, they've been incredibly powerful because of these SNEBs. And the SNEBs are actually pretty accurate for rockets, so even though they only have 36, when they get on target, they are extremely potent. And so all I need to do is let the airmobile spot the enemy force, and you can see we're just chunking those enemy infantry. And again, even though my airmobile is a unit that is not going to be dealing well with superior RPO, I don't have to worry about that, because the rockets have us covered. So all I need to do is make sure that I can see the enemy forces, and then the Lynx AH-1s can get to work. So we're even going to be throwing some rockets over here to the Spetsnaz, and you can see even at range, those rockets are doing some serious damage. And the closer you are, the more accurate the rockets are, and therefore you're going to have a better time killing things. But in this case, yeah, still with the SNEBs, able to do a decent amount of damage to the Spetsnaz. Now I did land this one after we saw it get hit the first time, so we're going to try and escape, but unfortunately one of them is going to get shot down on the way out. But we're constantly going to be bringing in more, so airmobiles everywhere. Great thing about these airmobiles, lore 80. 20 penetration AT weapon with 22 round per minute rate of fire. Fantastic. And then I can have the Lynx AH-1s deal with any infantry like the Superi RPO. I can even have the Saxons that I had earlier come and do that for us. So in this case, Taki using an Igla. Igla got spotted, so the Lynx is able to take it out nice and easy. And now the Saxons are riding forwards there to take care of the Superi RPO for us. Both of these being damaged means I am going to retreat them back to my FOB, get them fixed up, reloaded, bring them back to the front to get more kills onto these infantry. And the Superi RPO, they do have the RPO launcher, so I do need to be careful that they're not doing too much damage to my infantry. And with the Yoda gun coming in there, I had to try and dodge that too. But just a few rockets there from the Lynx AH-1, chunking the Superi RPO enough that the SAS are likely to be able to deal with them. Now it's important in an infantry engagement in a town that you have your own supply to resupply your infantry, whilst also making sure that you secure kills on your opponent. Because for example, this Superi RPO has survived our engagements, now retreating towards his own supply, and he's going to get that fixed up, ready to engage us the next time around. But if I can chase down the Superi, like I'm trying to do in this case with this SAS, then I can catch up to him, kill it off, and make sure that he can't get that back in the future. So it's actually pretty important. Taki's going to bring over the BTR-60 to try and save it, I believe. But obviously the SAS does have the AT-4, so not going to be able to get away with that. So more supply arriving, 4 Bedford supplies, retreating my own damaged infantry to get them fixed up and reinforced, and then continuing the advance with the SAS. So more helicopters coming in with airmobile, and this was pretty much my entire strategy, was continuous air support being flown in, so the rockets providing nice fire onto enemy forces if I need it, whilst also bringing in our reinforcements. And this kind of playstyle is extremely oppressive, because we're going to have way more on the front line than he is, because our reinforcements are arriving so much faster. Now they did make it so that you can't sell rocket transports, and I feel like that was a really good move, because it does definitely make you have to consider whether or not you want to invest into the rocket helicopter, because in certain situations your opponent might have a lot of AA, and therefore like having loads of rocket helicopters isn't going to be too helpful. But at the moment is exactly what I need. Because whilst we have taken out one Igla, there's only one left. And one on its own is going to have a hard time trying to kill these. Since it did shoot me, I am going to unload the Airmobile because it would have been a waste if it got shot down while the Airmobile were in it. But that gave time for my Airmobile on the ground to kill off that Igla. And now the Lynxes are free to charge forwards, at least until I see two Tunguskas on the horizon, which make short work of one of my Lynxes. We'll quickly take out the Sibariapio, and we'll do a runner. Now these Tunguskas are a lot more scary than Iglas because they have 7 HE, and Lynxes only have 6 health. So, gonna want to run away from those as quickly as possible. In the meanwhile, I did end up letting my SAS get killed there, which obviously wasn't a good idea. And we're continuing the engagement against the Sibariapio here, which isn't too great either. So the Airmobile going to be falling back, more reinforcements on their way. So I've also got these Saxons now moving forwards to support us, and at the back here you'll see that I'm building up quite a few Lynxes. I've also opted to bring in the M270 cluster that is ready and waiting to support us against the heavier tanks that are causing me issues. So in this case, I can only see Sibariapio. I saw a launcher come in from over here, so I was thinking my Saxons would be safe to just ride up here and engage the Sibariapio, but turns out the Razvedka was in position with its launcher ready to go. So all of those going down, unfortunately. BMP-1 going to be covering the retreat of the Sibari on the way out, but at least we're making a lot of progress here. Now you might notice that on this map, there's no longer a tree line on either side of this village sector. A lot of the maps in this game have had their trees cut down, and so there's a lot less cover here for my infantry, and honestly things like this BMP-1PG can do a lot of damage firing into the side of this town. This mod Airmobile trying to take care of the BMP-1 at least. And Wild Weasel coming in there with the seed missile from a teammate. Almost taking out the Tunguska, but not quite. Coming around for another run. Not going to be able to this time around because Taki has most likely turned off his 30mm to avoid that having radar. So what I'm going to opt to do now, I know that getting across this open ground is going to be extremely hard if I don't have support in position. So Milan 2s are going to be my choice for a little bit of anti-tank projection from the side of this town. Meanwhile, you can also see that I'm using my cluster to take out the Tunguska on the backside. We're going to be hitting this book as well. So a couple of lovely kills there from the M270s. So that's going to open up the potential for my Jaguar to come in and deal with the enemy T-80s if they provide problems, or T-64 BBs in this case. So Airmobile's now moving up, Milan's getting into position, and we're going to try and make a push for this tree line. We are going to get hit by the Pulamachiki here. These guys, they've got 3 MGs, so they're actually really good at range. Nice defensive unit for sure. But we are certainly going to overwhelm the Mot Avtada in front of us, and I'm going to take the opportunity to move up my SAS and all of my AA, because these Airmobile are actually pretty vulnerable to a bombing strike right now. And the 6th does have access to the MiGs with cluster. And you might be wondering, well, it's a cluster plane, why would you use it against infantry? Well, the MiG-21 cluster of the 6th is actually incredibly good against infantry, just because all of the cluster rounds, or cluster bombs, are usually quite concentrated on target. So Lynx on the left, unfortunately, getting hit by an AA piece. And same with the one on the right. But we are in a good position with those to kill off the Pulamachiki and the infantry that was on the left. And as long as we're kind of trading infantry for these helicopters, it's going to allow us to continue to push on the ground with our own infantry. The Mi-8 here did do a lot of damage to my own Airmobile, so they're going to be falling back to my supply to get themselves fixed up. And that's going to be just in time, because the Yorugun starts firing on that position where I was trying to cross in the open. But one of my squads has made it, and this is really important, because whilst it's only one squad, it does make a big difference to know what is ahead of me. And it will tell me if there is room for my infantry to run across the open to try and take some more ground here. Again, this area is way more open than it used to be, in that this used to be like a tree line across here, and I think all of this used to be amongst trees. So getting over here is really quite difficult for infantry. That's why the 81mm mortars have been brought in, and they're going to be providing smoke, so my javelins can move up, the Emmervilles can move across, the Milans can get into position, and you can see that I've even managed to land a Lynx AH1 really far forward. So that was a little bit of a test to see how far I could get with that. Now my 81mm mortar going to get hit by a bit of counter battery. I'm not too concerned about my mortars being killed by counter battery because they only cost 35 points. But obviously I want to try and save them for as long as possible so that I can use them for continued smoke support in the future in order to continue my push into this sector. So Challenger 2 now on the way. Or Challenger Mark 2 I should say, not a Challenger 2. Challenger Mark 2 on its way to provide leadership in order to capture this sector. So we've managed to get to a position where my infantry are contesting the edge, and in doing so that makes it pretty safe for me to start moving a Challenger Mark 2 up, especially if I have the smoke support potentially ready. Now as soon as that book opens fire, we're going to be targeting that with the M270s once again. And you'll see that I'm also going to be looking to go for a bit of counter battery on the left hand side. So Javelin has got its L85 turned off now just because I saw it was engaging the Zapati. With these single or like 2-man Javelin squads, always make sure you turn off their battle rifle, because that way you can keep them hidden and they won't automatically fire at enemy infantry when they go nearby, and that way you can just like easily catch out enemy forces. So there goes the book once again, and we're also going to be hitting over here with the cluster, trying to counter battery onto the enemy artillery. So Bedford sitting in position, giving this Milan some reinforcements, and also obviously some HGMs. So that's T80B there, getting hit by a spalling crit. Spalling crit, what it does is it causes the enemy unit to take an extra, I think, +2 damage. It's extra damage regardless. I'm not sure exactly how much it is, but yeah, in that case you saw it definitely chunked that T80. The Challenger 2 here in a bit of a tough spot. MiG-21 fire positioned. I did manage to smoke the MiG. I think Turkey fire positioned the back side, and you can see it did do a lot of damage to this infantry, but my Challenger Mark II managed to survive, so we managed to full cap this. And the HGMs that I brought in earlier are still providing fire onto any units that come across into the open, so that's another recon unit taken out there. The Mi-8's trying to move forwards now to get some more rockets on target, but I've moved up all my Javelins and the SAS. So we're in a really good spot. And this Bradley trying to now get a hit onto the Tunguska. It was stunned for quite a while, ends up getting taken out. So 2 more Challenger 2s arriving. Going to keep this leader one at least in cover, and these SAS going to have to do a runner from the artillery coming in and hitting that compound behind them. So it's been a good battle so far. We've managed to sweep through from this area all the way through. We're now pushing deep into the enemy territory, and that means that we're going to continue to reinforce with the helicopters, because they can come up and reinforce very quickly indeed. I'm going to try and keep an eye as much as possible on enemy AA as well, and in doing so we can give more targets to our M270s. Armor built, now unloaded. The Lynx AH-1s can help deal with enemy vehicles, and we can get them attack moving through the buildings to try and secure this sector entirely. And in capturing this, we're now at a +4. Our teammates had already been doing a good job of contesting here and here, so we were at a +2 for quite a lot of the game. But our continued airborne assault has finally paid dividends in our complete capture of this sector. And the M270s are just waiting to reload. Once they're ready to go, we can target the enemy AA once again. And I do of course have those on a control group most of the time. What I mean by control group, if you're new to the game, if you select units and press like Control and 1, you put them in the first control group. And then if you just press 1 while you have other stuff selected, it will just go back and select whatever you had in the group. So it's really, really handy to control artillery while you're not looking at it. So in this case, I'd have the airmobile here, and then I just press 1, it would select the M270s at the bottom of the screen. I can just press T, which is fire position, and then fire position at the locations I want. I can also just press Tab in order to scroll through them. That's also an important thing to note. MiG-21 coming in there with the cluster, going to make short work of the Challenger 2. T-64 BV also giving my Challenger 2 a hard time, so we're going to have to smoke that one off. And it was at this moment I realised that I really shouldn't have invested in any Challenger 2s, to be honest, because all it did was give Taki a target for his cluster and also a target for the T-64 BVs, which are already struggling to deal with all of the infantry that's continuously going through the town here and forcing Taki to fall back. So we've got a great position. The only mistake really from my part is I've left this SAS and airmobile back here, which would be very useful on the front line, particularly the SAS, because more man-pads the better. You can really shut down the air if we bring those with us. So we can see the Sabati RPO trying to make a run for it, so the airmobile just going to continue to try and push up as quickly as possible. It's also going to give me more eyes on things behind that could be potential targets for my artillery. So onwards we go. Just continue to try and cut them down. Also, the further we go, the more likely it is we'll bump into enemy supply that's potentially being brought in to help out. So we're in a really nice position now. The T-64 that was capturing this forced out of the sector. And you know what we need more of? Airmobiles and Lynxes. So we've got more of them coming in. You can see my big old Lynx pile at the back of the map ready to go, but that's going to be it as we hit a +9 capturing this back sector, and that is victory. So I wanted to, basically share this one because I think it was a very good sort of demonstration of how effective a airborne assault can be. And this is exactly the kind of game that you want to go for with this kind of style of play. Like, games that use this style don't tend to last too long because you get an advantage early on, and the idea is to snowball it. And that's again why it was so popular and is so popular in 1v1. Those SAS get you into such a good position. They can trade extremely well with pretty much everything they come up against, and then they sort of are the springboard for the rest of your troops. So in the case of me, I brought up all of the Saxons with the Mott airmobile at the start, and then after that initial opening, I'm just going to continuously flood in more Lynxes with more airmobile, and that way we're continuing to keep up the pace against Taki, who continuously falls behind. And so that's why it looks so brutal, because in some ways it is. And then the M270 is just there picking off the AA, so that if there's ever a time when I need to bring in the Jaguars to deal with more heavy armor, they're ready to go. And if the tanks get too close, then the infantry can deal with them because they've got decent launchers. So that's the sort of thing you want to do with the 2nd UK. Honestly, you could probably play this game without a single Challenger and you'd still be fine, because the Challengers, they got completely nerfed into oblivion, unfortunately. And it makes me sad. But hey, The second UK's still good, even if UK suffers. All right, we'll leave it there. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.